Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Your Journey. I'm your host, Kevin James Jackson, and as always, I have nothing but appreciation for you sacrificing your time to watch these videos. I truly appreciate it. I know last week I said I was going to talk about corporal punishment and the impact that they have on children as well as adults, but I want to stay on poverty just for about one or two more shows because I think poverty is so important and it's so devastating. I mean, it's devastating and traumatic that it's easy to see how it can be cyclical. So I want to talk about that a little bit more, and I want to talk about the impact that it had on my life. All right. So when I was growing up, I was called a latchkey kid, and that's not unusual because back in those days, most children were latchkey, and so my mom and dad worked Monday through Friday, like 9 to 5. They get home like about 5:30 or 6 o'clock. So it was my responsibility to get my siblings to get home and get my siblings home from school, change our school clothes into our play clothes, clean the house and do your homework, and then you can go outside and play. Because at that time, my parents were in survival mode. And what I mean by survival mode is that all they're caring about are basic needs. So they're caring about a place to live, light, heat, and food. And clothing comes after that, and whatever else you have. So my parents were struggling to make ends meet, even though they both were working. And so when you have that mentality, it's hard for you to become affectionate towards your children. My whole life from birth all the way up until I was an adult, I never had not one person in my family or my relatives tell me that they loved me. Not one, not my grandmother, great grandmother, aunt, mother, not even church members in church. Nobody ever told me that they loved me. Nobody ever said, "Hey, Kevin, you're doing a great job. You're a good kid. We're proud of you. Keep doing what you're doing. You're doing a great job." Never, not one time. There were no hugs. There were no kisses. There was no, "Hey, how was your school?" There was no, "Hey, you did a great job cleaning up," or "you did." There was none of that. As a matter of fact, the only time I got attention is when I disobeyed or I didn't do what I was supposed to do. So they were so focused on, I believe they focused on trying to make the ends meet. They didn't have time to think about that because they were in survival mode. So them being in survival mode, that means that a lot of responsibility fell on the children, particularly me, the oldest. So that responsibility of making sure my siblings make it home safe, make sure that they change their clothes, make sure they do their chores, and make sure they did their homework, adult responsibility on children because they're so focused on surviving. So I better not get any calls from you from school. And I bet not have to leave work to come to school to see about you because I can't afford it. I remember when report cards come up, my stepfather would line us all up. And back in those days, they had on report cards like "listen well, follow instructions." And if you had a check mark, that means you didn't do it. And my stepfather would go, "listen well, check. Follow instruction, check." And that check means that you got a longer beating, that he would beat you longer. Because because it was about, I don't have time to get out of that mode, that survival mode. I need you to step up and I need for you to be responsible. And just like most children, when the summertime comes, you hear your friends outside playing, you want to go outside and play with your friends. So then you try to negotiate with yourself, right? "Oh, I'm going to go out and play for 20 minutes or a half hour. I still have time to get home and, clean up and do all those different things." But like most children, you don't have a sense of time. 20 and 30 minutes to you, and it may seem like 20 and 30 minutes to you when they're actually an hour and a half. So now you got beat, you got the attention you're looking for. You got beat, physically abused, verbally abused, and emotional abuse because you weren't obedient. You didn't do what you had to do, and you didn't do what you needed to do. So when you have adult responsibility on children, you don't have the opportunity to be children. You don't have time to grow and to develop and to find yourself. So I found myself as a child and even as an adult being a people pleaser. I wanted to please people. I wanted to make them happy because that's what I did with my parents. So I cleaned up as best as I could. I didn't get in any trouble in school. I tried to have great report cards. So I didn't get in any trouble. And that resulted in me being a people pleaser. And even in my relationships, being a people pleaser. But trust me, we're going to talk about that in another episode about my relationships. And emotional abuse, we'll talk about that later as well. And the reason I'm talking about this is because I hear people all the time saying, where are the parents? Where are the parents? When the children are out late or the children are doing something. And I just wanted to set that foundation of how I was brought up and how I was raised in poverty. It's a little bit different now. Nowadays, as a parent, you got to take whatever job and whatever hours and whatever days they give you. So when people ask, where are the parents? When you go to Walmart at 8 and 9 o'clock at night, there are the parents. When you go to Target at 8 and 9 o'clock at night, those are the parents. When you ride on the CTA bus, those are the parents. When you're in an Uber or you in a cab, those are the parents. When you go to Bulls basketball games in the evening and the people behind the concession stands or selling you beers or peanuts, those are the parents. Their children are at home. So we got to have an understanding. We got to quit pointing fingers and have an understanding and say to ourselves, hey, what can we do? What can we do to support these parents that are out there working on Saturdays and Sundays in these evening hours? What programs do we need to put in place? What programs do we need to have in the community to keep the children busy, but yet and still give them support and things that they need? Like I told you before, and I said in my program, football saved my life. Football was everything to me. I only ran track because I wanted to get faster at football, but it kept me away from home, and I was getting home at 7:30, and sometimes 8 o'clock at night because of practice. So it's important that we give that support. And that's why I'm coming out with this video. That's why I'm talking about this, because I want to give examples of how devastating poverty is. And to give another example about it, I love me some Oprah Winfrey. I think she's amazing. I think she's an icon. I think that she's before her time. She's such a forward thinking and completely out of her box. And I remember in like the early 90s, mid 90s, Oprah Winfrey did an interview with Charlie Rose. I think it was Charlie Rose. I'm pretty sure it was him. And Charlie Rose asked her, he said, have you ever thought about writing your autobiography? And Oprah was like, yeah, I thought about it. He said, why haven't you? She said, because I have to tell the truth. And I'm not ready to tell the truth. So I follow Oprah on Instagram. All right, it's a version of the old magazine that she has, And on Tuesday, she and a Dr. Bruce Perry wrote a book together. And I haven't read the book, so I'm not endorsing the book. And the only reason I'm not because I haven't read the book yet, but it's going to be on my summer list. And they wrote a book about trauma and how trauma affects you as an adult, and what's the healing process that you need to go through as an adult to get past that trauma. And Oprah talked about the fact that it took her decades to realize that she was traumatized as a child and to begin the healing process so she can move past the traumatization. So anyway, this book got released on Tuesday. And so Oprah has been putting excerpts on Instagram about her childhood. And like I said before, she has been, hinting here and there about these different things that may have happened to her, but she never went into detail. And now it seems like she's going into a little bit more detail about her childhood. So this is an excerpt from the book that she posted on Instagram. And I thought it was very interesting. So I'm going to read this. I'm going to read this to you. Oprah said, the most pervasive feeling I remember from my own childhood is loneliness. My mother and father were together only once, underneath an old oak tree. 9 months after that singular encounter, I arrived. I lived with my grandmother for the first 6 months of my life, and when she passed away, I was shuttled between my mother, who moved to Milwaukee, and my father in Nashville. My mother worked as a maid for $50 a week, doing what she could to care for 3 young children. There was no time for nurturing. My mother felt distant, cold to the needs of this little girl. All of the energy went to keeping her head above water, surviving. I always felt like a burden, an extra mouth to feed. I rarely remember feeling loved, which impacted my ability to experience love as an adult. And the name of the book is What Happened to You. And the reason that I put this excerpt in the video is because I think it will have a more of an impact coming from somebody like Oprah, because we think of Oprah, I do, as this icon and she's rich, but you never think about where she came from and where it started at. So I think that have a bigger impact than just me, an average brother, saying it and making a video about it. And another reason is that we have that connection in the sense of being raised in poverty and having cold parents and no empathy and no nurturing with the parents, but understanding that they were in survival mode and they was trying to do what's best for the family. And the other reason is that I told the story about Charlie Rose, and I put this excerpt on there because now I think that this is just my opinion, she didn't say this, that I think now she's living in her truth. And I think that her living in her truth, she felt the need to put it out there so other people can see it, other people can experience, and other people can know. And hopefully this will be hope and motivation for them to not get caught up in a cycle of poverty and kind of break that mold. So that's why I was like, man, I got to show this, and I got to put this up there, and I have to, talk about poverty again, because I just think it's so important. And so my thing is what I'm looking for is more compassion, more understanding for the people who may drive the Uber or the taxi, or the people in Walmart or Target that's working at 8 or 9 o'clock at night, or the CTA bus driver, or the people working a Bulls game. That we have a little bit more compassion for them, and we have a little bit more understanding, and that we try to come together in some kind of shape, form, or fashion to offer that support, because there is none in the community. They need support. For me, it was football, but everybody doesn't play sport. But there needs to be something for the parents and for the children to be able to help and be support. But I also think it starts with understanding. It starts with having empathy for the people who are struggling and to deal with poverty. And so the next show I'm gonna try to see if I can get my best friend Al on the show, because he and I and all my friends, we talk about how we were raised in poverty and the impact that it had on us. And so I'm gonna have him on the show so we can talk about the impact that poverty had on us as children, the impact it still had on us as men, and particularly as Black men. And so because I think that this is important, and I want to show just how we struggled, but we were able to get to the point where we are in our lives. And I think that's important because we never gave up hope. We never quit. We were resilient. And I think that that's important. Hope is everything. Hope is like the seeds. And from that, you can get motivated, you can get determined, and you can definitely turn your life around. And I'm hoping that this will inspire people. I hope that this will motivate people, even to the point of how to get out of poverty, how to break the cycle. And so I'm hoping that this definitely reach you in some shape, form, or fashion, or motivate you in some shape, form, or fashion, because this video is from my heart, and I hope that it reaches your heart. And like in church when I was growing up, they said what comes from the heart reaches the heart. So I definitely hope that it reaches your heart. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for sacrificing your time. As always, I pray your blessings on your journey. I pray that God make your journey fruitful. I hope He gives you courage and the strength to continue on your journey and be the person that you were meant to be, and use the talent that God has given you to the maximum amount that you can. Again, thank you so much, and I'll see you next time on my next show. God bless you and have a great day. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Bye.